Our first guest is an actor, a writer, and a director who has lived all over the world, from Montreal, Canada, to Melbourne, Australia, and across the Iron Curtain in East Germany. Now, for our purposes, he's both Captain Magenta and Captain Indigo in Captain Scarlet and Mysterons, the Hood in Thunderbird 6, and Matthew Harding in the Secret Service. So please give a big TV21 welcome to Mr. Gary Files.
Very pleased to be here. I've never done one of these before, so in absolute terror I have written down a bit of an idea about what we used to do, hopefully that will give you a sort of a warm-up to some questions that we're going to have in a short while. So I'll just start with the reason why I was very happy to come here to Bristol. I was working down here at Bristol at the Old Vic Company in the 1960s with a lot of respectable actors who went on to become big names on British TV, like Richard Pascoe, Barbara Lee Hunt, Frank Middlemas, Jane Asher, Jane Lapotaire, Gordon Granger, Janet Key, and Anna Carteret, to drop a few names. When word came down from London that Gerry Anderson and the Thunderbird people were looking for American accents. As the pay was terrific, and as it was known that my American accent was tops, a whole lot of the actors from the Bristol Old Vic Company advised me to make contact with Century 21 Productions, Gerry's company, post-haste. My accent was so good because it had to be. I trained at the National Theatre School of Canada, the only Australian to have ever done so, I may say, and started in the profession there. So for me to get TV work and work there generally, my Canadian accent had to be perfect. In other words, it soon became obvious that being able to do other North American accents would aid my work possibilities even more. So when I approached Century 21, I cheated a bit and put together a tape introducing myself and talking like a Canadian. I also did a whole lot of American accents and a few other exotics like West Indian, African, Scots, and as an afterthought, Australian, and sent it to Gerry Anderson in London. He later told me I got the job, first on the movie Thunderbird 6, then on their new series Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, mainly because he was amazed to hear a Canadian of all people doing such a terrific Australian accent. I really had no idea who or what the Century 21 people and their puppet series were about. It was only after I was one of the team that I realised just what a big success they were, both in England and later in the United States. Gerry had invented supermarionation, which I'm sure you all know about, and even more important, he was the first to have a video monitor that worked off the camera's lens, so he could see what a take was like straight away, on replay. That meant he only printed the takes which he felt worked, thus saving on processing, film stock, blah, blah, blah. The sound and model people were also doing amazing things with their puppets out there in the tiny studios they had in the London suburb of Slough. Many of the special effects people that Gerry trained and encouraged were snatched away by the Americans, first by Stanley Kubrick for 2001, and then later on, the people who did Star Wars. First in England, then in LA. A lot of voice people got good work because of Gerry. He was wonderfully loyal to us regulars. Of course, we had to be very flexible too, although there was a stable of roughly 8 to 10 people on a regular basis. They had to play all sorts of extra characters as well. We worked out one day that we'd done 56 different characters between us in the 3 supermarionation series, Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, Joe 90 and the Secret Service. Some memories from that time were working in a studio very near Covent Garden Market, which was at that time still working as a bulk vegetable market for London. Most of the trolleys of that market used solid metal wheels, which used to rumble on the pavement. So more often than not, we'd find ourselves pausing to let the trolley pass, and then going on with the drama. It was there too that we tried out Gerry's famous quiet paper. It was a normal script printed onto what seemed like blotting paper. As with a radio drama script, we used to read a page we were on and then slid it under the script. It was that noise that they were trying to get rid of. But the blotting paper was hell. It didn't want to move or slide at all. So the racket of us trying to turn the bloody page was worse than what they were trying to get rid of. So Gerry decided to forget it. We worked in many studios, but the two most impressive were the one in Portland Place near the BBC and the big hangar-like film studio out at Denham. The latter was my favourite. It was where we shot Thunderbird 6, which, as I said, was my first job with Century 21. After a lot of fun on the movie and 2 TV series, I finally had my big chance and was chosen to be co-lead with Stanley Unwin in the next series. He was a marvellous comedy actor. I'm sure a lot of you would know about him, best known for his funny language that he'd invented. He used this language to confuse the villains whenever we got into trouble. He was the village curate and an amateur sleuth, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, and I was his gardener. But as this was a Gerry Anderson sci-fi series, he was a gardener with a difference. My character Matthew shrank down to a tiny size and was thus able to foil the villain of the day. I'd always imagined that Gerry's series were essentially aimed at the younger end of the market, but they've appealed to people right across the age spectrum in a surprising way. When we finally branched into live-action sci-fi, I was fortunate enough to be asked to be in the pilot episode of UFO, just before I headed off from England to Canada and eventually home to Australia. And now here we are at the Century 21 convention. God, I mean, that sounds amazing to me. Just about as amazing as the longevity of Gerry Anderson's pioneering work with his Century 21 productions. Although a company with a name like that should cause no surprise when their product is still going strong right now in this era of their namesake, 40-odd years later. So finally, I hope that you get as much enjoyment out of this convention as I did working with Gerry and the terrific team involved with the Super Mario Nation series. A wonderful, talented team which contained the likes of Dave Lane, Stanley Unwin, Keith Alexander, David Healy, Shane Rimmer, and Jeremy Wilkin, and Bud Tingwall, a great mate of mine, to name a few. As for me, I'll be roughing it on those beautiful beaches in an Australian summer when I get back, trying to make ends meet. And by the by, to keep those who employ me happy, would you please watch out for Dog Star 2? It's on the BBC, and it's the second in a series in which I play a mad scientist and inventor called Raymond Ridley. Thank you.